Hi, I'm Extraayogurt and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're not new, then welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about how to begin building your perfect shell. The purpose of this video slash series is really to just encourage the creativity that you guys already have. I think building is very personal and it varies so much from person to person. It's really hard to make a how to build tutorial. Though of course I'm going to be showing you guys how to use the tools here and there. But as far as how to build, I just want to help you find different methods and kind of push you along with the creativity that you already have. So the first step, in my opinion, is to establish your goal. What are you trying to build exactly? And in this video, we're just going to focus on single family homes, but in future videos, I definitely hope to talk about community lots and apartments and things like that. But for now, what kind of house are you trying to build? And I've thought of 3 different categories that I hope describes at least 90% of builders in this game. So the first category is you're trying to build something that looks exactly like something from real life. Maybe it's something you saw while you were driving, maybe it's something you saw from a movie or from a picture, or maybe it's your very own house. But that would be the first category. Secondly, if you don't fall into that, then maybe you just want to build freely and you don't care what the end result is going to be. You don't care how you start. You just care about clicking and building and just kind of rolling with it. And if you feel like you don't fit into either of those categories, then maybe you are trying to build freely, but you know that there's elements that the build has to have. Most of the time I would consider myself to fall into that category. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the first category though. And to do that, I think we should look at some examples of real life houses. Okay, so I've gathered a few examples of real life houses, and I really didn't overthink it. I just grabbed some copyright-free images and we're going to kind of assess them and talk about them. So if you're trying to build from real life, there's a few things you should consider. And the first thing is game limitations and your own personal building skill limitations. I personally am not a very advanced builder. I just kind of go with the flow, and I try to pick up little tidbits here and there, but for the most part, I'm not great at constrained floor elevation. I'm not great with messing with things too much. And then lastly, something you want to consider is, what does the game have? What does it not have? As far as items, wall coverings, floor coverings, roof trims, chimneys, plants, shutters, things like that. So maybe you need to do some CC shopping. But yeah, so let's talk about this first example. And right away, as far as game limitations, I really don't see any. The only thing I could think of was the fact that these stairs lead pretty much directly into the door. It's kind of a straight on angle, so it's hard to see, but it looks like it just kind of goes straight up into the door. Now, depending on how strict you're trying to be, and what am I trying to say? How the level of realism that you're going for. I personally would not be so strict to worry about that, but maybe you are really trying to capture every single little detail. So this would be something that the game may limit you from doing, because Sims do need one tile in front of a door in order to enter it. So just an example of something to think about. But now, as far as the wall coverings, maybe you can find something similar in the game. Maybe you want something even closer and you have to go CC shopping, but yeah. And then the windows here, the game does have windows like this, but they don't have shutters. And then they also have windows with shutters, but the glass part is a bit different. So maybe that's something you want to go ahead and download. And actually, let's just go ahead and go into the game. So yeah, the game, I mean, like this window looks a lot like the one from the picture, but there's no shutters. And then these windows have shutters, but you know, it's not exactly the same. You guys kind of get the idea, I'm sure. So yeah, maybe from that you conclude that that's something you need to add to your CC shopping list. Moving on to the next example, this house looks like it has a lot going on, but I don't feel like the game has too many constraints to stop you from making something like this. You may just need to look for 4 wall coverings to match this, and then also of course this stone. It's very like bulky, it protrudes a lot, and that will be hard to mimic in the game because it's just going to be a flat wall covering. But maybe you can download some different rocks and place them along the walls. And then if we zoom in here, you can see that these windows have single side shutters, this one here as well, so that might be something to shop for. And this area here, oops, this area right here that we can't see, you may have to just kind of use your imagination to fill in what you think is there. Moving on to the next example, once again, game limitations. I don't think there's any, just looks like a flat foundation. However, the game does not have this color of siding, this kind of dark blue color, I think it is. It also looks like the steps are blue. The game does not have that. And this white railing here on the steps. So, you know, things like that you may have to take note of and download depending on how strict you're being on the build. Now this example here, one thing immediately stands out to me, and that is the fact that there is a half garage here and a full garage door here. Obviously the game does have this sort of size of garage, but not this one. So maybe that's something you want to try to find and download. Or if you're like me and you really like to make faux garages, then you can use wall coverings to try to mimic something like that. And actually, I do kind of want to show you guys really quick what I mean. All right, so here, hopefully you guys kind of get the idea of what I mean by faux garage. You have your full garage here and then like a mini fake garage door here on the side. So yeah, you could do something like that. If not, I'm sure you can find mini garage doors. Maybe not functional, but decorative maybe, if you do a little bit of searching. So okay, moving on back to our example. Yeah, and then you can see here there's roof trim, which you can definitely find and download, and little details like that, maybe some shingles that you want to download. And then there's a yellow door here, of course. But yeah, moving on to the next example. All right, so this one is interesting. There's really no windows like this in the game. That might be something you want to look and find. And then doing this 2-story archway. This is definitely possible if you know how to use constrained floor elevation. I have seen people do this a lot and it looks really great. But like we talked about earlier, that's something you want to consider are your own limitations. Is this something you want to learn how to do? Is it something you're willing to learn how to do? Or maybe you just kind of create your own version of this. Or, you know, if you're like, no, I need it to look exactly like this, then you can definitely find a way to do this with the game's capabilities. But other than that, things like the wall covering, the game does have something that looks exactly like this, I think, actually. Okay, so as you can see, it's not perfect. try not to laugh, guys, but the game does have stucco that really looks a lot like that. It's just difficult to get like the trimming around the windows, but you get the idea. It just depends. What do you want to do? Do you want it to be CC free? Are you willing to download CC to really replicate that realism? Yeah, it's completely up to you. Okay, so I mentioned a lot about CC shopping, and I feel like it would be pretty lame if I talked about it so much but didn't give you guys a few examples. So I'm gonna put up some pictures here of a few really amazing downloads from some creators in the community, and I picked these ones specifically, one because of course they're quite popular and easy to find, and two because I feel like these are great download options for if you're going for realism or trying to like we talked about, match something from an image or from real life. So and of course I'll have links to all of these in the description if you want to check them out. Okay, so we talked a lot about category 1, but let's move on to category 2. If you just want to get into a lot and build freely. So there's not a whole lot of tips that I can give for that, but I do have a few methods of going about building freely. And that first method is something I like to call carving the cake. And what that means is that you just start with a big slab of foundation, and from there you just start carving pieces out of it. Of course, with respect to the elements that you want to have, or maybe if you haven't even thought about that, then just start carving until you get a shape that you think that you might like and go from there. And then of course, if you don't want to use foundation and you just want it to be flat on the ground, it's the same concept. Just build a big room and you can start carving sections out of it. Yeah, so you guys get the idea. That's just kind of a way to help you free build and just go with the flow. Now, if you don't want to do that method, then you can also just kind of do a sort of building block method. And instead of starting with a big slab and cutting pieces out of it, you just build in blocks, square by square, until you get something that you like. And same thing, if you don't want to use foundations, you can just use rooms. Okay, but that looked absolutely awful, and I actually want to redo that and show you a sensible way to do it. So you might just go block by block, like so, and delete the walls that you don't want on the inside. Yeah, so you guys kind of get the idea. Okay, now moving on to that last and third category. You want to build freely, but there's elements that you want to have. What elements am I talking about specifically? So, and I'm going to insert some pictures of my own builds here. So maybe you know that you want to have a 2-car garage, and you have to consider leaving lots of space for that. Make sure that you place your driveways down first, and things like that. Or maybe you know that you want the house to have a really grand entrance, so you want to start your build a little bit farther back on the lot so that you have lots of room for that kind of like grand walk up kind of deal. Or maybe you know that you want your house to have a basement, which of course means that you should probably start the build with the basement, and work around it from there. or maybe, you want it to be a walkout basement, or you want it to have, you want the basement to have windows. So you need to make sure that you adjust your terrain for those things. Or maybe that you want your build to have multiple stories. Specifically, maybe you want the build to have the front door on the second floor. And I'll insert some pictures to show you what I mean by that. For some reason, this is something that I do a lot. Like, I do this all the time and I haven't even realized it until now. I'm always doing second story entryways. So, anyways, if that's something you want, then of course, factor that in as you're building. You need room for stairs at the front of the lot. But yeah, or maybe you're trying to do specific door or window placement. Like, for example, in this build, where I have the window in like the roof section. So that's something to consider. Make sure you have a really tall roof so that you can place windows in it, and things like that. And then things like porches and patios. Of course, you just have to consider leaving enough space at the front or the back. Do you want it to be a covered porch? Do you want it to be just open? It all depends. So I feel like for this third category, the main thing is, as you're building freely, make sure you're reserving space for the things that you know that you want. And it's also going to affect the order that you're going to build in. Like we talked about with the basement. Of course, start with the basement. If you have a basement, you're gonna have to be building on a foundation. Unless there's a way to build a basement without foundation, I'm not sure, but I don't think that there is. So yeah, I think that covers step one in building your shell, establishing your goal of what exactly you want to build. Okay, so moving on to step two, finding your building style. And by style, I don't necessarily mean design wise, or I mean like how things look, but more so what is the order that you want to go in? Do you want to start with the layout and the exterior look can be secondary, or is the exterior look more important and then you can just figure out the layout later on? So I've just slapped this together based on that first example image that we looked at, so let's not judge too hard. Yeah, I feel like this kind of captured it well enough. But like we talked about before, if you're trying to build from a picture, I'm assuming that the exterior is more important to you, because that's what we looked at. And then on the inside, this is kind of my preference, honestly, is to work from the outside inward. So once I have, what I like on the outside, then I can always kind of just slap together a layout inside. I'm fairly comfortable with just winging the layout. It's not a huge deal to me. However, if you are the kind of person who prioritizes the layout, then I would just go for a top-down view, cut away your walls, and draw out your layout just as you have it, either sketched out or from a picture or what have you. And then, of course, you can worry about how the exterior looks later. But if you're trying to do both, for instance, in the example where you're building your own house, and the layout and the exterior are equally important, then personally I would focus on the layout first, just because if you're building the exterior of your own house, then you may have issues squeezing everything into it afterward. if that makes sense. So I would definitely plot out the layout first in that scenario, and then you can always do lots of different cosmetic things on the outside to make it what you want it. You can even take advantage of using empty space. For example, like if you have a layout here, like so, but the front of the house was meant to be flat, you could do something like this. Say you have your front door here, your rooms, whatever, and you just leave these areas inaccessible. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So like I said, interior in that scenario, interior first, exterior second. In my opinion, that would be the easiest way to achieve both things. Now, something I forgot to mention was if you're trying to prioritize the layout, but you're using foundation, and that's not quite as easy to visualize when you don't have the separation of the walls. So in that case, I would just use different floor coverings to plot your layout out. You kind of get the idea. So so you can distinguish room from room. And I'm sorry guys, my cat was scratching the door again. And then after that, then you can just layer your foundation over it. And of course, if you go down, you can still see where you have your different sections. Does that make sense? Hopefully these are good tips, and you guys don't think this is silly, but it just depends. So like these are all, everything I'm talking about, it's very like it's very structured. It's very like there's a lot of planning and thought going into it. We talked earlier about just freely building, and of course if you are doing that, you don't really need to think about this, but if it helps you kind of move your build along, I think it's something good to think about. Like, is the layout important to you, or is the exterior more important if you do get stuck while you're freely building? So yeah. All right, so the third step is going to be making adjustments or adding details. So let's say that you've taken into consideration everything we've talked about so far, and this is what you end up with. Now, I think that we can all agree that this build is very, very plain, and it could use a little bit more detail and a little bit more thought. Like I said earlier, building's very personal, so if this is your style and you like it like this, that is completely up to you. But I just want to give some tips on how we can make it just a little bit more interesting, because I think we can all agree that it is not very interesting. So a few things to kind of polish the build. First off, let's just get rid of the roof for now so that we can work with these walls and rooms. First thing I notice immediately is I really want to center these windows, and with the wall spacing we have, we can either make it like that, or we can go ahead and extend this room one tile and scoot these over. And I think I like the look of that a lot, honestly. So now here we have our front door. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We can leave it just as is. Now around the side, I like that this is centered. And the back, this is completely personal preference, but something I like to do is when I'm using these windows that have the shutters on them, sometimes I prefer to have the back windows not have shutters. That's just me. That's completely just my style. I think, like I said, it makes it more interesting. You know, you have a variety of windows instead of the same window over and over all around the build. So I consider the windows with shutters to be more like kind of cosmetic. So they're just on the sides and the front. This window is fine, but if we are imagining that there's going to be a kitchen here, you might want to have a counter-friendly window that's not going to cut into your countertops. So I might do something like that. If the mix of windows bothers you, of course, you can just use the same windows all around, or maybe not even put a window there at all. But for what I want to do, I think I'm going to change that to a counter-friendly window. And yeah, so just like that, we've already made it a little bit more interesting. Things are a little bit less lopsided and more symmetrical, which of course, like I said, it's a matter of taste, but I think it is more interesting because we have a variety of windows. And yeah, so now let's talk about the roof. Let's say you had just plopped this hip roof on there, and there's nothing wrong with this. However, it may look a bit weird that the roof covers up the tops of the windows, and I kind of want to fix that. So we can just lower the roof height a bit, and that lifts up the edge of the roof there and exposes our windows, and I think that looks quite cute and quite nice. So another thing, you can leave this as is, the front door, or if you really want to, you could add a column here and add a bit of an overhang to protect the front door from the elements. So, you know, hypothetically, let's say your sim has a visitor and they're waiting out front, and you don't want them to get soaked by the rain or be in the snow. So you just add a little covered area there, and we can add a roof here. Let me see. I'm just gonna go with the same roof we've been using. And honestly, this looks really cute. It's very basic, but basic can be great. Basic can be great sometimes. So I kind of like the look of this a lot. And I mean, just like that, with just a few things, like the build, it already looks a bit better in my opinion. All right, so moving along with adjustments and details, I wanted to do a second example because I feel like the first one was a little bit too simple and very small. So I went ahead and slapped together this build. And once again, let's say the same thing. You're like, I have this awesome shell. It even has a basement. I love how it looks. You know, I love the windows I chose and everything, the columns, but just something about it. I cannot figure out an interesting roof. It's so boxy. It's so flat. You know, you get the idea. So let's see what little adjustments we can make and details can we add to make this build more interesting. So first, before we even talk about the roof, I just want to delete it for now and get that out of our way. And I want to talk about a really easy technique to fix a build that is really boxy when you don't want it to be. And that is adding on little rectangles. And so what I mean by that is you literally just, let's delete that window because it will be in our way. Add these little rectangles on the side of your build. Now, you could make them 2-story, you could make them 1-story. I'm gonna make this one 2 stories. And we can always add back those windows. It's not a big deal. And we'll put a window there. Yeah, we'll put 2 windows there. So just like that. I mean, already the back is less flat and it's a little bit more interesting. And of course, you can just go ahead and replicate that as many times as you want. Hopefully it doesn't affect the interior too much. And you know what, if it does, like let's say you want to add a rectangle here on the outside, but you want this to stay the same, like we talked about earlier, you can utilize inaccessible space by just adding it, but not expanding it onto the interior, if that makes sense. So for this side, I'm just going to make it 1 story and switch it up. Well, I guess we don't need floor tiles there yet, but make it 1 story and switch it up. And, you know, we're starting to kind of build onto the house. Another thing, you don't always need to make it go all the way to the ground. If you want, you can have a floating extension like so, instead of having the foundation all the way down. I think that's kind of cool. You can have a floating extension on the 2nd floor, which I also really like. Actually, I think I want to do that, but yeah, I like that. So that's just a really quick, easy way to add some kind of dimension to your build when it is looking a bit flat. And the more I look at that, the less I like it. So we're gonna get rid of this. We're gonna keep what we have going on here and here. And okay, so we're gonna look at the stairs. So as we can see, there is this awkward space right here that I don't love. It's kind of like space that I don't think would be used. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to delete those windows, and I'm going to kind of wall this off. Let me see. Okay, we can't intersect the stairs, so I'm gonna remove that piece of flooring. And go like that. And I'm going to just cut out that section. And I didn't mean to, but I'm getting ahead of my point here. But this house has a basement, so it does make the terrain travel downward, and I actually really like that. So so yeah, we're gonna cut that section out. And upstairs we do have the same kind of thing. So what I'm gonna do here is match it up with that first floor by cutting out the same section. And we still have that awkward space, so I'm just going to get rid of it altogether and have it completely open, like so. And then of course you want to have some sort of railing here so that, you know, hypothetically your Sims can't fall over the edge there. So just like that, we've made this a lot more, I'm so tired of using the I word, guys. I'm sorry for saying interesting so much, but now back to the basement, and what I was talking about, getting ahead of myself earlier. What we did here is kind of what I want to do around the basement as well. I do really like basements that have windows. So just grab your sledgehammer and take away, well, wait a minute. I don't think we've even talked about how to build a basement. And you know what? That's gonna take me 5 seconds to explain. So let's get out of this lot and I will show you guys really quickly how to even make a basement. So, all right, so basements, this is going to take you all of 1 minute to learn, I promise. So first, go ahead and go into your terrain tools, choose the lower terrain tool, choose a small brush, and 12 clicks is the magic number, guys. So click 12 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you're gonna have something like that. Go back into your terrain tools, choose the level terrain tool, and you're gonna pull outward. It's very important. If you don't pull outward and you pull inward, you're just gonna flatten it. Pull outward to whatever shape or size you want your basement to be. You're gonna take your wall tool and you can literally just build along just like that. And normally you're gonna go ahead and seal it, I like to say, with foundation, like so. And of course, if you want, you can leave sections open and add windows there. However, if you're gonna add windows, you do have to have one floor tile in front of the wall in order to add windows or doors. And it doesn't actually let light in, so that's kind of annoying, but it is nice to have. So there's your 1 minute tutorial on basements. And so let's get back into our build over here. Hammer those sections where we would like to add windows. Flatten that out and add some windows. I'm not going to add a window there because stairs are there. We could add some windows here too. Let's just go all out and really do this. So, gonna face those outward. Now, when you do that, like I said, you do have to replace the floor that you, well, I don't know if I covered that, but make sure you replace the flooring that you just deleted. And this is starting to look really cool, guys. So now, to me, you could leave it like this. So I used to live in Utah, and every house in Utah has a basement, and the basements commonly will they'll be just like this, and they'll have some sort of like metal sheet that covers the dirt and stuff, and it'll just be like this well with little pebbles at the bottom. But I don't love that look. I kind of want it to be more open, so I'm just gonna extend that a bit. Not so much, but just a little bit. And we're gonna use my favorite tool, which is this smooth terrain tool. Grab a medium brush and like do a little bit of this to make it blend well with the terrain. Same thing over here, just kind of like smooth it out. And whenever you do that, make sure that you re-level out the inside, because that is what you want to be perfectly flat. All right, let's take a look at it now. So now we have some stuff going on. May not be everyone's taste, but we have definitely added dimension. Here, we have to work on this roof. And I think I forgot to mention that I do have an almost 3-hour beginner's building guide on my channel if you'd like to check it out, where I cover details of the tools in the game and everything. But for this series, it's more of like it's more design based, so I don't want to get too into it. But really quickly, I will show you how to add a decent looking roof to something like this, because obviously if you try to do something like this, then you're kind of like, okay, well, what do I do with the front? Well, honestly, if I kind of, no, that looks awful. Okay, so it can be difficult, but what you're gonna do is, firstly, delete everything. Well, I'm just deleting everything that I know is going to be in the way, but you'll see why and what you'll have to delete. So I just deleted all that stuff because what we're going to do is literally just build directly into the house like that. And how far back you want to go. Okay, the stairs are going to be in the way, so I'm going to delete the stairs too. How far back you want to go, it depends on this, how do I explain it? This section right here. This right here. Where do you want that to be? I really want it to be like, hold on, let me redo this. If I just delete everything and I make this go all the way out, then I think, okay, no, we still get that little, I really didn't want that to be there, but it looks like we're gonna have to kind of settle for that. And that's okay. But basically what I'm trying to get at is you just build directly into the house. See how I made it closer and now it's kind of like that? That's really what I didn't want, but we're gonna roll with it. And do something like this. And I like that. I think I'm happy with that. So I've set this to the lowest setting just to make it as flat as I can to allow for like maximum space on these walls where I want to put windows. And now, of course, I've neglected the side here, forgetting that this is going to show through. So, well, maybe we can cover that up. I kind of don't like that. I kind of don't like that at all. So what are we gonna do there? Okay, let's give this another try. I do like this a lot more. It kind of wraps around and there's no odd spots. So with that, obviously you see the roof is now inside of the house until you add a roof on top. And wherever you put a roof on top, it will disappear from the inside. So yeah. All right, now I'm just gonna delete these little unnecessary bits. on the inside of the roof. But as you can see, we have now successfully added a roof to our house, even though it's got all types of odd shapes around it. We did it. So now I'm going to add back the windows and of course the staircase here. And the doors, if I can remember exactly how this was. Now, the issue with doing roofs like that is sometimes it's not going to, like if we had a window here before, now it's kind of blocked off and we kind of have to move outward here, if that makes sense. But it doesn't really bother me. I usually am able to plan around it, but you guys can kind of see what I mean there. Luckily that's like about a perfect height, but before we had these windows out here, but now it's getting cut off. So that is a downside to having to do these kind of weird front roofs like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use these windows instead. Which, yes, does unfortunately change the look of the house a bit, but I think that's all right. All right, and then lastly, something I didn't mention, of course, if you want to have ceilings, you have to add a ceiling. And I'm gonna add that as our shell's finishing touch, making sure there's ceilings everywhere. Everywhere there needs to be. This space is inaccessible, so we're good. And yeah. So, yeah, what do you guys think? We've transformed this and made it, you know, I'm not gonna say the I word. We've added a lot more dimension. We've put our kind of touch on it, and I feel like this is a really good example of how adding a little adjustments and details can really transform your shell and make it what you imagined it to be. Like I said, this isn't meant to be like a how-to series, as more of a like design help kind of thing. But like I said, I do have that beginner's tutorial if you do want more detailed instructions on how to do things, how to use tools and everything in the game. So I can put that in the description as well. But for now, I think that kind of sums up everything that I wanted to talk about in this first episode. And I think we've kind of achieved that perfect shell. I really like how this looks, guys. This house is quite cute. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think. I'm really used to just doing speed builds and voiceovers, so actively building with you guys is a bit different for me. But if you have any feedback, let me know. I'm sorry that you can hear my mouse clicking. I just have a really loud mouse, and then my mic is right next to it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think and what else you want to see in the next episodes. And I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.